instructed to be thankful. Lord, in the bad times, we're reminded to be reminded of your goodness toward us, how you deal with us. Lord, to endure some of those bad times, and Lord, still be thankful. So, Lord, wherever any of us are at today, Lord, you only know. But Lord, let there be a thankfulness in our heart that you haven't left us, you haven't forsaken us. And indeed, we're riding for you, for your brand. And Lord, let today be something that's given here that speaks to each and every one of our hearts, so that whenever we go out of these doors, without a doubt, we're riding for you. And Lord, put us on our own personal mission and purpose, go and round up some mavericks in your name, in your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. If you have your Bible, turn with me to Romans chapter 8. I'm going to apologize to you because more than likely the version that I'm reading out of here today is probably not the one that you have, but that's all right. And the references is going to be Romans chapter 8, and we'll probably start around verse 11 or so. But I was last weekend, being Easter weekend, a friend of ours over at one of their farms put together this kind of charity event, to where instead of going and your kids getting their picture taken with the regular, your Easter bunny like they have up in the mall, that you could actually get your kids' picture taken for a donation of any amount and give it to you, of where they're holding real ducks and baby ducks and chicks. And they also kind of gave you like a little tour of their farm, and you got to go around and see some of the things that they had set up, and it was just a really, really neat experience. And we were doing that, and I was going around, I was looking, and people that actually work on the farm or have done some of that work, you know that whenever there's kind of a different look and a different feel, that's whenever you have some people over and kind of do those little tours, than it is during the entire work week. All right, and I'm looking around, and I'm sure Butch Schoffacher's over there shaking his head a little, like, yeah, there's a little bit different. They're getting a taste of what the farm is like, but but for example, you get there, and they've got a few animals there that's kind of pinned up, and the kids are able to kind of rub on their head. And man, everything is looking meticulous. And you got some chickens over here, and you got just little stations, if you would, that's kind of set up where you kind of get a taste of it. But man, you don't really see the full circle of what it took to get that farm looking like it does for that moment, for you to come and enjoy. And it's kind of this bright, shiny thing as to where during the entire week or whenever people ain't there to get it looking like this, it's a whole different thing. There's a lot of good times, but there's some bad times. There's some there's some issues that come up with the stock. You get muddy, you get dirty. These little farm tours, everybody's kind of clean. There ain't really anything on the bottom of your boots. Just kind of going around. And I got to thinking about that, especially coming off Easter, because you guys know as well as I do, man, Easter for the most part is a pretty well-attended service. And in fact, a lot of folks, man, they'll attend, and I'm not putting you down, man. I'm happy you come on these 2 dates, but they'll come on Easter, they'll come on Christmas. And so, I was thinking about that, man. If somebody just kind of shows up for Easter, they kind of get the farm tour. Everything put together, everything really nice and neat. Man, they get this real clear, pretty picture, of the Christian life and all that other sort of stuff. But you know what, guys? There's life after Easter. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is that life after Easter. Some of that messiness and some of that other stuff that's going on in that farm, that, to relate it back to you into your personal life and your personal ride with Jesus Christ. And in Romans chapter 8, it begins to give us what life after Easter is about. Where you have the resurrected Christ, and now that His Spirit living within all believers, what is this? What is life after Easter like? What does it look like? And in Romans chapter 8, it starts giving us a little indication. And I'm reading this out of the Message Bible, so if it looks different or whatnot, that's all right. Go back and read your version later or whatever the case. But as I was going through and I happened to come across this particular version, I thought, man, this is just kind of spot on here. I want to read from this one this morning. And it says and the Message has a little different way. It's different labeled here. So I think it's starting out with verse 10 or 11. But it says, if God Himself has taken up residence in your life, you can hardly be thinking more of yourself than of Him. And it goes on to say this, but for you who welcome Him in whom He dwells, even though you still experience all the limitations of sin, you yourself experience life on God's terms. You yourself experience life on God's terms. And it goes on to say, it stands to reason, doesn't it, that if the alive and present God who raised Jesus from the dead moves into your life, He will do the same thing in you that He did in Jesus, bringing you alive to Himself. And then I want to go down to Romans 15 and 17 because to me, here it is. He's given us some background and he's sharing with us what the life of Christ is like in our life. This is kind of life after Easter. And he goes down, and here we are in verse 15, going through 17. Once again, the Message. It says this resurrection life you receive from God is not a timid, grave-tending life. I want those words to sink into you here a little bit. This resurrection life you receive from God is not a timid, grave-tending life. It's adventurously expectant. Greeting God with a childlike, what's next, Papa? God's Spirit touches our spirit, and it confirms who we really are. We know who He is, and we know who we are, father and children. And we know we are going to get what's coming to us, an unbelievable inheritance. We go through exactly what Christ goes through. If we go through the hard times with Him, then we're certainly going to go through the good times with Him. Life after Easter. Man, some of the things that really caught my attention is that when we talk about riding for God's brand and riding for Him, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about an adventurous life. We're talking about living. In this particular passage, it says, this is the resurrection life you receive from God. It is not a timid, grave-tending life. And I got to thinking about that, and honestly, I got to thinking about a graveyard. And, you know, I mean, I'm a simple guy, okay? So I think in simple terms. And I think about a graveyard. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious what's in a graveyard. All right? I mean, it's dead folks, and you know what? That graveyard ain't going anywhere, okay? It's one little section that they have that's laid out, and it is exactly for that. It's where people go to be buried. And most graveyards will usually have some sort of like fencing around it, or a barrier, so that you know exactly where this grave is, this graveyard is. And when you think about grave maintenance, and listen, obviously the grass needs to be cut. The Bible isn't criticizing anybody who takes cutting the grass in graveyards, okay? Don't get me wrong here. But when you think about this, in regards to spiritual terms, in regard to grave maintenance and that sort of stuff, the things that are being done is all cosmetic stuff. It's cutting the grass. It might be trimming the fence line. It might be washing up a headstone or whatever. It's all about an outside appearance. The things that are being done in that graveyard is affecting the people that's in that graveyard absolutely zero. You get what I'm saying? It's a great honor, and yeah, I mean, upkeep is great. It's a great honor, and it's a memorial, but that's what it is. And it says the Christian life, your ride with God, is not a grave tending life. And what I'm about to tell you here, guys, this isn't to offend anybody. I'm just going to share with you my personal experience, all right? In my Christian life and early in Christian life, many of the churches that I was attending was a graveyard. And what I mean by that was we had our little barriers. We had our little walls. And everything that we did, as was presented to the Christian life to us, happened within those little walls. It was nothing outside of that. The Christian life to us was a stationary place that we went time and time again, that we focused more on the maintenance and the cosmetics than really what was on the life-giving ride that Christ was wanting to give. Everything was happening kind of within our own little walls. We had our own funds, we had our own things, we had our own programs, we had our own stuff, but everything was happening right there within that little building. Guys, I'm going to tell you something right now, and I think it's probably one reason that so many people get excited about the 4U. I never want the 4U to be like that. This ain't a graveyard. Your Christian life is a lot more than paying mortgages and paying bills and paying electric and cutting grass and shining up stuff and, you know what, just gathering together once a week. That's not what the Christian ride is about. And if it becomes like that, then we've all become grave keepers and tenders. And just going and making sure the maintenance is cut and the grass is done and the bills are paid and all this other little stuff. That's not the ride that God has for you. It's more than that. It's important together. Yeah, it is. Man, are you encouraged when you gather? Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I really do. I think that you are. But you know what? The Christian life isn't about gravekeeping. One little place, within one little set of walls, just doing maintenance. That's not life. That ain't the life that God has for you. That's not what He wants from you. That's not why He was crucified, buried, and then resurrected. Said you could be a better church member and do upkeep. That ain't it. He did it so you could have life, and life more abundant. That's what it's about. He said He didn't call you to be a timid grave tender. It's hard to fulfill your purpose in a graveyard. Because the differences you're making, where does it show? Who is it impacting? Obviously, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, man, I appreciate the people that take the care and they do that sort of thing, for our parents or grandparents or, children, whatnot, where they keep that stuff clean. But in the spiritual sense, guys, what kind of impact is that making? Living in the past, setting up memorials. God wants you out riding for Him. He wants you out living. And He describes the exact opposite of that kind of life. I gave kind of a little example in the church type setting, but what about your own personal life? How many times are we so self-involved? Remember that first passage I read you? What does it say? What did it say? If God himself is taking up residence in your life, you can hardly be thinking more of yourself than of him. We start doing that, it's grave tending. I've got this maintenance and that maintenance, and I need to keep this up, and I need to keep that up, and all of a sudden everything becomes just such a self-involved existence that, you know what, we begin to fail to hear God speak, and we begin to fail to listen to what he's doing, and you know what, and pretty soon we're just kind of muddling through life, and we're thinking, man, you know, what kind of ride is this? This is the mundane of life, and you know what, we begin to stop seeing how God is working in our lives right where we are, calling us to do the things that he's called us to do. Man, that's not the kind of life that God's asking you to live. That's not why he died for you. That's not why he rose for you. We had Jackson out on the horse the other day. It's been a while since he rode Gunner. I was out there riding him, and I talked him into coming. And I'm like, son, I really want you here. I really want you on this horse. Because it's been a while since he rode it. And at first, I kind of had to talk him into it a little bit. Okay, Dad. He wanted to spend an extra hour at the batting cages. You know, it's baseball season. We got out to the barn and threw the saddle on Gunner and got him warmed up, started riding him. And then Jackson got on and started riding him. Then this big smile comes on his face. And he starts riding, and he had, you know, Gunner and Jackson both had some kinks to work out, you know. But he starts riding him, and he starts getting him to do little certain things. And all of a sudden, he had this big smile on his face. And he said, Dad, I forgot how fun it is to ride Gunner. Guys, when you get caught up in the mundane things of life, not listening or hearing or expecting things from God, you know what? You forget how fun life is. And you forget how awesome God is. Because it is an adventurous life. It's not grave tending. It says it's not a timid, grave tending life. It's an adventurously expectant, greeting God with a childlike, what's next, Papa? kind of life. Unfortunately, many of us are in a place where our what's next isn't adventurously expecting. It's, oh Lord, what's going to happen next? Been there. Been there. Everybody's been there at one point in time. Maybe you're there today. Let me tell you something. God can so turn that around. When you start putting your trust and faith in Him, and you just start letting Him live His life through you, man, that what's next? What could possibly go wrong next? Man, He can turn into, what's next? What good thing is God about to do right now? What's about to take place right now? Who's about to come into my life right now? Who am I going to impact right now? What's going to happen right now? Man, see, that's just the grace of God that works in your life, and that's His life. When Jesus, we read this verse about how Christ's life is in you and how that your life is going to mirror Him as you trust in Him. You know what? Jesus wasn't walking around this earth thinking, Lord, one more storm. Oh, demoniacs. Sickness again. What's going to happen now? Oh boy, yeah, here comes the preachers. I'm getting an earful now. They're calling me wine bibber again. Drunk. You didn't see this. He says, no, my Father's at work, so I'm at work. You know, yeah, there's challenges and there's things that's coming in our lives. There's storms that come in our lives. Man, there's all types of evil influences that kind of want to bombard our lives each and every single day. And at the same time, here's Jesus walking in this, and he's like, man, here's something that God's about to do that's great. Here's something that God's about to do that's really going to impact this person in a positive way. And you know what? As you believe and trust in Him, guys, guess what? It is amazing time and time again how, you know what? He's so true to His Word, and the things that were meant for evil, He turns around for good. You know? And the things that are coming that you just think, man, I just can't bear. It's amazing how the things, all of a sudden, He begins to work all things out together for good. Many of you right here can think back to a personal experience in your life where you thought, man, this is definitely the worst thing ever. And you know what? It actually turned out to be fairly good. Like, man, you know what? If that would have happened, if that didn't happen, then, boy, I sure wouldn't be where I'm at today. It's an adventurously expectant life. You guys, it's not something that's out of your ordinary, everyday thing. I want you to get that. You read the Bible, man, sometimes we look at disciples and this sort of stuff like these superheroes. It's just kind of like a comic book kind of world. It ain't. These were people that were just living and working and farming and fishing and just going about doing what they do. Paul, whenever, you know, he's going through and he's written so many books in the New Testament that God laid on his heart to write. And you know, there he is, and yeah, he's going about doing God's work, and at the same time, just he's a tent maker. He's making tents. But adventurously expecting God to do something great in his life. Adventurously expecting that next ride. It's kind of funny, you know, and God is so good. A lot of times you don't even have to be looking for it. He just sets you up with the encounter. And sometimes you realize it later. We were trying something new, pork burgers. Anybody ever had them? Man, they're good. I like them. And my wife sent me out for some pretzel rolls at Kroger. And as soon as I walked in the store, she probably knew it was a mistake. I couldn't find any of this stuff. She sent me like a list. It was 4 items. Out of the 4 items, I think I got 1 out of 4. You know? I couldn't get it. And I keep looking for these pretzel rolls, you know, that she wanted to put on the burgers to kind of spice them up a little bit, you know, and I'm looking for them. I can't find them. There's somebody there, and they're trying to help me, and they're being very helpful. I mean, they're going back to the bakery. They're just going out of their way. There's just none of these to be found, and I'm texting and whatever. And while I'm doing this, somebody walks past me and says, "Hey, I think I know you. Are you that guy up before you?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And I recognize this guy, and we begin to have a conversation. And I won't go into details of what the conversation was about, but I'll tell you this. Whenever we had that conversation, I knew I wasn't in there for rolls. And what seemed like something so aggravating to me, probably more for my wife, I was taking pictures on my phone. Will this bun work? Good thing for them. There ain't no telling what I brought on. White bread, man. That's what we use. Just put it on there. Sandwiches. But I knew. I'm like, you know what? I came in here, and if these rolls would have been here, I'd have been in, I'd have been out. And you know what? I was supposed to be right here at this moment, right now. I really wasn't expecting that. It wasn't like I was looking for some sort of God opportunity. So many times He just puts it right there in your life. Maybe it's you being here today. Maybe that's one of them. Maybe that's the start of your ride right here today. Maybe you're new, maybe you're coming in, and you know what, you're riding, you just, man, things in your life has been a rough ride. And if nothing else, he wants to tell you how much better that ride can be, and he wants to tell you what he can do in your life, and he wants to tell you that your life is not some sort of mundane, grave-tending existence, but it's a resurrected life in him that's full of adventure, and full of promise, and full of hope, and full of belief, and you know what? Full of grace, where things can start turning around in your life as an individual riding for his brand. Maybe you weren't expecting that kind of moment. But that's the grace of God. Because he's doing it for you, whether you know it's coming or not. You know, what's next, Papa? It says we know we're going to get what's coming to us. But let me tell you, what's coming to Sam Garner, doing his own will, in his own thing, in his own way, and everything. I'll tell you, a big pile of nothing. Failure. Defeat. But whenever I'm trusting him, and I place my faith in him, his life is living through me. Let me tell you what's coming, not only to me, but anybody that does that. It says an unbelievable inheritance. Before I got what I'm telling you here today, guys, I'm telling you, I had one door closed in my face after another. And man, I'd try to push them through, just thinking, man, I know I need to just be over there. And you know what? It didn't work out. And it caused more worry and headache and heartache and all that stuff. And it was amazing whenever I did. And it's so hard, man. I mean, there's still things in life. Man, even you give God the reins in your life, you want to just take them right back. You know, it's hard. It's hard to give somebody the reins in your life. You just kind of want to take them back, you know. But whenever I just came to this simple understanding of, you know what, God, if you promised, you'll do it. And you know what, if you say that in you that I'm no longer just some old sinner, but I'm actually your child. And if you say that I have an inheritance in you, if you say my life is going to be an adventurous life, if you say that there's blessing and hope that's coming into my life, if you say that you're going to start opening doors in my life, not because of what I do, but because of your grace, I don't even know how to operate in such a thing as that. I'm just going to stand and walk and go about my daily living, and you do the rest. And I'll just do my best to honor you and however much I can. It was amazing. Man, all those doors started coming open. Started going through those things. You know what? Because it's an adventuresome ride. It's an adventuresome ride. And that's the ride God wants you to have, guys. Not a grave-tending life. An adventuresome ride. We go through exactly what Christ goes through. Christ didn't just go through, it wasn't all just awesome and no pain in any day of his life or whatever. But it says when we go through the hard times with him, what we were just even praying about earlier, when we go through the hard times with him, if we leave and just continue to trust him when things don't seem to be working out the way that we expect, the next line says, we're going through the good times with him. Guys, many of you here, you threw your leg over the saddle for God. And you're riding for his brand. Stop riding in the ditch. Keep your toes out and stay out of the wire. Let him have the reins, because I'm going to tell you something, guys. There are so many more greener pastures ahead for you. We used to often quote it, I think it's out of Psalms, weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Well, I want to tell you something. you don't have to wait for the morning anymore in the New Testament. Because Jesus Christ is risen. And your morning is here. And he's saying, saddle up and ride. Many of you just need to get to this point in your life that God